Greetings, everyone. Blessed good night to each and every one of you. Mabugania Hong Sung Mut. This is King Cyril Uruwei. And this is Dangriga Unmuted. Unmuting the truth, demanding change. It's a beautiful evening. I had a full day today. I went to Belmopan and met a brother. You know, I've been meeting so many people along the way, and I have to take the time out to express appreciation to each and every one of you who sign on to Dangriga Unmuted, UBAFUtv, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And to those of you who sign on with the intention to learn, to be informed, to be educated, to help share, build awareness as to what's happening in Dangriga, as to what's happening in Belize on a whole. I've been meeting as I journey, as I visit these different places here in Dangriga, throughout the country, Belize City, Belmopan. It's quite refreshing when I meet some of you who would stop me on the street and say, you know what, I like where they do. I really like the way how you present the information. I want to say to each and every one of you, Sereme, thank you. Your encouragement means a lot. It means a great deal because there are times when the going gets rough. You know, it becomes an uphill battle. It becomes a slippery slope, especially when you have others who might try to just derail what you're doing because they're committed to a party or they're committed to a person. Good night to each and every one of you. Abner, blessed greeting. Mel G, blessed greetings to you, my dearest. Greetings to each and every one of you signed on tonight. There are several things I want to talk about before I bring on my brother Jerry Enriquez. Let's see here. So first thing first, this is Dangriga Unmuted. Therefore, I try to talk about issues facing Dangriga, that Dangriga is facing. I have to share some information regarding my recent post. I was asked to go visit I am actually not sure where the Christmas tree is. I should probably go take a look at it. I was asked to go take a look at the Christmas tree. I guess the individuals who brought this to my attention, probably saw something that needs to be addressed. Now, while I am here and while I am talking about that, I also want to mention that two individuals reached out to me. Well, not quite reached out. One individual reached out to me and the other posted on they made a comment on the post about being petty. It is true that sometimes we find fault with just anything. And we have to sometimes wait to hear more to understand the context in which certain information is shared. I have to applaud the brother who commented on that post. Yes, there is truth to what you said. And while I haven't seen the Christmas tree, I could only hope that it's well lit, it's well decorated, your comment is that Dangriga people should do for themselves and do for Dangriga and stop depending on politics. That there is some truth to that. I agree with you to some extent. At the same time, we have stewards, we have people who are responsible to spending taxpayers' dollars, which we are paying for, which we contribute to, the people of Dangriga. So to whom much is given, much is required. So if you are given money or if you are given access to monies, the people money, you are to act responsibly with that money. So with that said, this for me is not trying to nitpick or attack anyone. I'm just, when you're used to a certain way, when you're used to things being done in a certain kind of way, you become concerned. I think it's okay to be concerned. I think it's okay to ask questions. The individual who reached out to me and said, you know what, Uruwei, no make people use you. I want to say this to you directly because we know each other. Anybody can be used based on whatever information is put on the table out of ignorance. I also want to assure you that my intention is not to nitpick or to allow anyone to steer me in a direction that will lead to conflict, right? That will lead to division and chaos. When I made that post, it is important, just like how there is nationally, there is an opposition who holds the party in government accountable. Dangriga also has to hold its leaders accountable. So have no concern. Don't worry about that. I can assure you there's nothing for you to be concerned about. I was assured that the tree looks good. I thank you for that. Thank you for that information. And if that's the case, then I want to applaud the mayor of Dangriga. I want to applaud the Dangriga Town Council if that is the case. That's a good thing. But don't get all up in your feelings. I'm saying this to everybody, not just these individuals who commented and who reached out to me. Let's not get in our feelings. If a situation is being addressed, if questions is being asked, then let's make room. Let's make room to at least entertain those questions. I think it's safe to say that I didn't bash anyone. I didn't come across in any kind of vindictive kind of way or attacking kind of way. I was simply asking a question. I was asked to go see the lighting, the tree, and I haven't seen it. And so I posted on Facebook for anyone who have seen it, or if you walk past it, I just want to see it. I would love to see it. And I will go take a look, not to create problems, but I'm a concerned resident of Dangriga Town. I love my town. I love my people. I love this town so much. So I want to make sure that the people that we put in charge to do what needs to be done is doing what needs to be done. Thank you all for your comment. Thank you for reaching out. National issues. Before I bring on my brother Jerry. Jerry told me he will be slightly late because he was on the road today. So just bear some patience. I want to have been gnawing on this motorcycle thing. The whole idea of reinforcing the laws and making sure that most motorcycle drivers are being careful, making sure that they are properly trained. I think that what the government is doing, the Ministry of Transport or Transportation and the CEO, Brother Chester Williams, is doing, I applaud that they are taking the initiative to try to cut down on the accidents that's happening or that are happening with motorcycle drivers. I think that's a really good thing to pay attention to it. However, like many of you, let me just give some bullet points. So, motorcycle drivers will be, it will be mandatory for them to take extra courses or extra training. I might not be using the right words, maybe 2 weeks extra training. And some will have to pay up to $300. Let me digress just a bit, but within the same topic of safety, this motorcycle issue. Not too long ago, I believe on Sunday, I was with a friend. We were in a vehicle driving, heading toward Ecumenical Drive. And this motorcycle came from behind us on the right-hand side and just swerved as we were making a right turn and just quickly pass us and make that immediate right turn that we were making and had the audacity to turn around and look at us with disgust, with anger, like we did something wrong, like we edged him or almost edged him off the road. So they were at fault. If an accident had happened, they would have been at fault. But I said this just to add that I support the Ministry of Transportation to reinforce the laws, to try to come up with ways to avoid accidents. I am not sold on allowing poor people, because most people who don't got money, who really don't have a lot of money, riding motorcycles. We have the delivery guys. We have, people who just can't afford a vehicle, right? And so for them to pay $300 and for them to also take this extra course, I sincerely believe, I feel that there is something else that we can do. I don't have all the answers. Again, I applaud the CEO, Chester Williams. I applaud the Minister of Transportation, Louis Zabane, for taking the initiative to really crank down on this. However, this $300 not really, sit right personally with me, sit right with a lot of people, right? I really think that we could come up with a different strategy than to have poor people to pay $300. People don't got money like that. Also, while we are reinforcing the laws, we also have to improve signage. We have to improve lighting. We have to add more speed bumps. I don't see much or any of that. Maybe it's because I haven't came across the information, but I haven't heard Mr. Zabane talking about speed bumps, talk about better signage, talk about better lighting. There are so many things we can do to avoid motorcycle accidents, right? Apart from just putting a fine of $300 and having people go through the painstaking time of training to ride a motorcycle. I like that they will crank down on teenagers who are not qualified to be driving a motorcycle. I think that need to be really reinforced, right? So that's one thing in national topics. Abner, too much motorcycle accidents and deaths happening. Yes, absolutely. So I want to be fair in that regard. Another thing, national issues, while we wait for my brother Jerry to join us. Let's see. The Prime Minister made a statement on the media. And I understand that some of you, I see your comments. Let me find this video and play it so we could all be on the same page. Why is this thing? All right. The Prime Minister made a statement about Budna in the, I believe it was on Channel 5. I found the video. So let me play this video and then I will comment on it. But before that, Hams Flores, people can't afford cars. Reason they buy motorcycles. People who can't afford motorcycles buy bicycles. People who can't afford bicycles are walking. Yes, indeed. Michael Flores, you love to applaud criminals, bro. Something is not clean about that. That's your opinion, my brother. Thank you for your comment. Let's play this video by Johnny Briseño, and then I will comment. All right, we have Jerry has joined me, so let me just make sure. Jerry, you're not live just yet. Let me make sure I can hear you. Give me some audio feedback. Good, good, good. That's good enough. Just hang tight, my brother. Your camera, I think it was better how you had it. Very good. Excellent. So I will add you live in just a bit. Let me. Right. Absolutely. Okay, so let me wrap up with what I was about to share here, and then I will you are not live yet, but I am live. All right, folks, so let me play this video before I bring on Jerry Mads Nor. Good night, everyone. Good night to you. Here we go.
We know his record. We know what he has been doing for a very long time. And this is where I think the media, being sensational on this story, forget that this guy is a monster. I mean, I did not see any of you out there crying out for the 16-year-old that was killed, was mistakenly killed when he was in the bedroom with Mr. Budna. Or when Mr. Budna have raped young boys. I didn't hear any of you all out there crying out loud for justice for these people, but yet you're crying out for justice for Mr. Budna.
Without fairness.
So, you can't hold me responsible for something happening in Orange Jack Central. I don't know what criminal activities are going on in Orange Jack Central. We know his record. We know what he has been doing for a very long time. And this is where I think the media, being sensational on this story.
So let me briefly comment on what the Prime Minister is saying here. I'm trying to avoid coming on in a negative way each time I come live on you, share information with you guys, because there are some good things happening in the country as well. But when we try to cloud the truth by finding excuses, Budna is not on trial at this moment for what he did in the past. Let me make something clear from me. The record has shown that Budna is a pedophile. The record has shown that he is indeed a criminal. I don't support that. He should be punished for his crimes. He should be punished for his crimes. But when a man is kidnapped, not only a man, a Belizean is kidnapped from his own country and exported to another country that is hostile toward Belize, toward our country. When regular citizens could just pass so many checkpoints, pass the border without anyone stopping them with a man that they have kidnapped, pass freely, clearance. How is it that the Prime Minister keep pressing on the fact that Budna is a criminal and we know the cry about the 16-year war we get? Listen, stick to the facts. Stick to the facts. We're dealing with the case, the Budna case. What was done was criminal. Budna is a criminal. We are not addressing his past crimes. He was a free man in Belize. Why is Johnny Briceño still acting like a fool, non-compos mentis, not of sound mind? And some of you tolerating this just because you are affiliated with the Blue Party. You are more interested in protecting the party over people. You know, this is disgusting in my opinion. It's hard for me to watch this kind of rhetoric, to listen to this type of rhetoric coming from the man at the top, leading this country, dodging. They have done a poor job dealing with this Budna case. And why I have a problem with it is because any Belizean who speak up against this administration or against anybody who has some type of power, be it illusory, you could get killed. You could go missing. And these people will just go on their merry way and live their life just like they just swat or fly off your shoulder. Because you tolerate it. You, Miss POP follower. You, Mr. POP follower. You tolerate it. Let's isolate Budna's crimes for now, because that's what we should do. We are talking about a kidnapping. That's a serious crime. One last topic before I bring on my brother Jerry Enriquez. Henry Charles. You see, we call these people honorable when they do dishonorable things, when they abuse their power, and we still refer to them as honorable. We, the people, protect them. Let's take a look at this video.
On Friday night, just before 8, Minister Henry Charles Usher and his driver, Harrison Rebo Blades, pulled out of Gwen Lizaraga Street next to the Biltmore and merged onto the Philip Colson Highway. They did so without coming to a full and complete stop. They went into the left lane, where Zach Reich was traveling southbound at speed on the highway, and he had to quickly merge to get into the right lane. Wright says he pulled up beside him as if to say, "What's up with that?" Usher says Wright tried to force them off the highway. In a minute, they both ended up at the highway store across the highway on the northbound side. Wright, who lives in Bella Vista, was meeting friends outside, while Usher says he was picking up soft drinks for his kids. But Usher stayed in the vehicle on the phone while Blades stepped out of the vehicle, seemed to adjust his waist and went to talk to Reich, seen here in the white hat with his group. Reich alleges that after some hard talk, Blades pulled a gun, which is when he suddenly spun here. In this blurry video from across the highway, you can see that he pulled something from his waist, and you can hear him shouting that Usher is his little brother, while one of Reich's group says, "Hey, hey, the way you to pull that gun out for?" Shortly after, Usher came out of the pickup, and both he and Blades went into the store where he bought those soft drinks, and Blades, who seemed to still be talking to the group from the door, went to buy a Bellican. They checked out. The minister showed Blades where to open his beer, and they went into the pickup. It raises questions about whether Blades was drinking while handling a gun, and whether he was drinking and driving. Most importantly, it raises questions about whether he pulled a firearm. Fearing for his life, Reich went immediately to make a report at the Belama police substation. But he says after they recorded the statement, the police told him that for his own safety, they could not enter it in the police crime information management system.
As it relates to that incident with Mr. Riker, Mr. Reach, what I've been advised is that a statement was in fact recorded from him on the night in question. Also, that the investigation is still ongoing. Statements are being recorded from other persons who were on the scene. And wherever this investigation takes us, that is where we will go. But I will also want to say that we have tasked persons from the Professional Standards Branch to reach out to Mr. Reach for him to provide us with a statement as it relates to the statement that he is making in terms of being told by a particular police officer that his statement will not be taken or it will not be updated in the SIMS in the interest of his safety. It can never be that a person goes to a police station for assistance and is left feeling more concerned about their safety. So certainly we will be taking actions in that regard.
So, we give these people the power to behave like they are way above the law. You listen to the news, you watch the surveillance, you watch the video. We don't know how much stout or alcohol the brother had consumed at that time. But based on the evidence, based on the video, we know the man made take a lead taste. We don't know how much, right? So we have to be careful because everybody gets sued left, right, and center nowadays. This is what we have created. Now, to add insult to injury, if you may listen carefully. So the brethren who went and make this complaint, they told him that they're not going to file a complaint for his own safety. Why? Why? Now listen to how this ends. All right? You listen to how this ends, and then we'll bring on Jerry Enriquez.
In a statement to police, that Minister Henry Charles Usher's driver had pulled a gun on him. He put that in a statement, but told us that police said his statement would not be put into the crime information management system known as SIMS for his own safety. Well, since then it has been put in the system, we know, because a source sent it to us. But it says plain and simple that he was requesting no further action. Sources say the disputing parties have reached a mutually agreeable settlement. A sudden down in a statement to police that Minister Henry Charles.
They have reached a mutually agreed settlement. Let's make something clear. I spoke with an individual who has extensive knowledge about gun laws. He's not an attorney. so I cannot quote this person. But despite, when it comes to firearm, this is how serious this thing is. Neither of those individuals, not Henry Charles's driver, nor the other person who made the report, the DPP and the police, they have the authority, despite the fact if the brother who filed the report say that, you know what, I don't want to press charges, they can use their own discretion and say, no, we don't want to hear that. This is a crime. I guarantee you, you right now watching this video, if you are not the minister's son, if you are not the minister's family, your backside going to jail, you may have at a Hattieville tonight if you don't have money for bail. Guaranteed. You would have been locked up. This is a serious offense. But they have mutually agreed. This is the country where they live in. And your prime minister will talk about. Anyway, and I spend much time on this. Make we bring on Jerry Enriquez. Tonight we're going to be talking about Commerce Bight. This is Dangriga Unmuted. We unmute the truth with demand change. Our King Cyril Uruwei, and I'll be joined right now by my brother Jerry Enriquez. Let me bring on Jerry. Jerry, ida bien. Buiti guyon nuoguri. Kindly tell the people good night before we get deep into this topic of Commerce Bight.
Well, thank you for having me, Cyril. Again, thank you for inviting me to talk about Commerce Bight. It's based on an article I wrote about 10 years ago, looking at the potential of Commerce Bight for national development. And so you asked me to come and share about just my insights about Commerce Bight and what it could have been as a national port. But now of course, it's a different story. But I want to thank you for having me to talk about that article that I wrote.
Absolutely. Jerry, and thank you as well. I am actually bringing both of our images up on the screen. So I want to ask our audience, just hang tight. I'm in the background. I'll remain in the background for a couple of seconds while I do this. Listen, we've been keeping up with the news, with all the noise that's happening. I say noise, some of it, some facts, some from the public domain. I'm just going to give a Reader's Digest of what's happening with Commerce Bight. So currently, we have Basilio Zabane, who is the developer. Not too long ago, we've heard in the news of the brother Rocha, the Mexican businessman, and who is an investor, or who is said to have been investing in this development at Commerce Bight here in Dangriga. I want to play this video, this short video, before we go into the details of what's happening here, and then you're going to expound on why Commerce Bight has been dormant for so long. So let me play this video while I bring up both of our images on the screen.
Yeah, hello?
1 second. Okay, here we go. I actually selected the one without audio.
The coastline, a pine ridge forest, and the Maya Mountains as a backdrop. There are few places as picturesque as Commerce Bight, about 1.5 miles south of Dangriga. But it also has the deepest waters of any port in Belize.
Many Belizeans are unaware that Commerce Bight is the only natural occurring deepwater port in Belize.
And that's why tourism investor Basilio Zabane is spearheading a $50 million Belize pocket tourism and luxury yacht project. Ground was broken on Friday with the area
Mr.
rep, the
Earl.
Prime Minister, and the Minister of Tourism in attendance. Zabaneh and his company, Southern Deep Port Development Limited, will have to find $50 million. It is something that will be able to find financing
I
to
remember
reach
to ask me
completion.
to
Yeah,
start with the
as you know,
update
and
about the
you're
case.
well read and in tune,
Then we get
$50 million is
all right.
pittance for these types
Trying to
of
get some better lighting
projects these
here.
days, and a lot of money is out there, and we believe that. I think Belize is a hot destination, and there are investors out there who would want to invest their money into Belize.
To be able to uplift it.
And a big part of stoking that investor confidence is contained in this document. The Parliament approved public-private partnership, which makes the government more than a vested interest. They're a shareholder. I saw the PPP agreement that you all drafted for him. The concessions are very lavish. How do you justify those?
But it is nothing different than what other previous governments have done. Actually, we cut it down, and that is why it was sent back at least times in cabinet, because we felt it was way too much.
That was August 2024, and 9 months later, in May of 2025, Raul Roca's Legacy Holding announced that it was, quote, formally engaged to, quote, spearhead the conceptual and technical oversight of the new state-of-the-art port facility in Dangriga. Another release said Legacy Holding has completed the initial regional study aimed at evaluating the tourism potential of the area surrounding the future site of the Dangriga port. And that site is still up. But this morning, the project's parent company sent out a remarkable release saying basically they didn't know. The release says, quote, it came to our attention yesterday that Legacy Holdings of Mexico has information on a website promoting a project at Port of Dangriga. This is unauthorized, and we have requested that they remove the information immediately. Now we note that if you search for the Port of Dangriga or Dangriga Cruise Port, the Roca site is the first one that comes up. The release goes on to acknowledge that Southern Deep Port Development, quote, had discussions with Legacy Holdings based on their stated interest in investment opportunities in Belize. These discussions started in April and ended in September of this year, and no business investment or partnership was established with them. But there must have been a mighty miscommunication which led to the development of this site, which remains live tonight, even though Legacy's principal, Raul Roca, is under investigation for his links to organized crime, and reports say there's a warrant for his arrest.
So, you've heard it all, but let me pause for a bit. Jerry, once again, thank you. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who are signed on live tonight. You are here, I am assuming, because you are interested in what's happening in Dangriga. You're interested in what's happening in Belize overall. Before we dig deeper into this, Jerry, I want to reserve some time to ask you for some updates on what's happening with the redistricting. You have been going to court, fighting the government to have fair elections, to divvy up the constituencies at least close to equal. What's the update on that?
Well, thank you very much for asking me about that. Just because yesterday we had a case management with the Caribbean Court of Justice. When people think that this will just blow away like a lee breeze, the very foundation of our democracy has been undermined by this political party administration and the one that was previously. Both political parties have been insistent and persistent and resistant to have a fair electoral system in which people's votes count fairly across the board. And they've fought that. Both parties are undermining the country. So what we're seeing on the surface right now is years and years of blatant corruption, greed, arrogance, and a sense of entitlement, especially among the Belize city area representatives and the leaders who they choose to run the country. So it is an ongoing struggle that I've had since January, and it is sometimes a lonely struggle, but we have taken it through the High Court, we've taken it through the Court of Appeal, and now we have an expedited case accepted at the Caribbean Court of Justice because they've seen merits to what we're fighting for. And so the latest is that our case will be heard on March 12th, which will be 1 year, almost, it's like 1 year anniversary of the national elections that was held,
Right.
ironically, but we're on to fight this to the end. And so just wanted to inform people that if things seem that it's been quiet, no, we're pushing it right through, and I want to see this that justice is served. And of course, the OAS have informed the government of Belize and made recommendations for electoral redivisioning. They've done it in 2012. They've repeatedly done it and informed different prime ministers and the Electoral and Boundaries Commission that they have to get this right. The system right now is one of the worst when we have 65% malapportionment in between the highest and the lowest. It is one of the worst, if not just in the region, in the entire hemisphere. And we're running an administration that is unconstitutional. They got in there, they involved innocent Belizeans in the process, and maybe they're not so innocent. Some of them were paid to vote and all of that. And this is what we have. And we have a system where corrupt, lying, greedy um, leaders are covering up for deep levels of corruption and taking advantage of the Belizean people. So with a straight face, they could go and lie and want to continue this kind of system. This has to stop, and we must show that no one is above the law. And those people who are breaking the Constitution must be held accountable. So that's what the struggle is about.
Now, let's just say, Jerry, you
Yeah.
win this case. What's the next step, and how soon does this come in effect?
Well, depending on what the ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice is, this is a landmark case. This case is precedent setting in that a government cannot continue over and over to violate the Constitution and get away with it. So we hope that the Caribbean Court of Justice will use this case and make a judgment that will set a precedent for the rest of the region and other countries within its jurisdiction. So that's one. Secondly, I could say it ain't over until it's over. We will ensure that no further broken promises are made for fair redivisioning of electoral divisions in the East. We're going to really hold them accountable to that. And I really ask for the support of the people. We cannot continue to sit on the fence and just watch these things happening. People have been silent. The unions, I keep saying over and over, are only strongly concerned when it personally affects them. But when the Constitution is violated over and over and over, people are just watching. So if you imagine, suppose there was not the Belize Peace Movement or my efforts to bring this to the fore, everybody would have just continued as if
Mhm.
everything is normal, while these leaders continue to pillage this country and try and break the constitution and do what they wish. That has to stop, and people have to raise their awareness, their commitment to make sure that we hold our leaders accountable. Gone should be the days of the Yesa Masa colonial system, but there are those politicians who, having broken the Constitution and the law, they want to be held up to esteem as honorable members of the society while they continue to undermine the democratic system in the ways. So the people must awaken and one of the ways in which they must awaken is to be able to clear the minds of hoping for rewards, financial rewards, whatever, however it comes, turkey for Christmas and ham and turkey for Christmas, or $100 for a vote, or whatever these kinds of rewards they seek for, to empower these leaders. There has to be more integrity in the system, but the people also must be able to, we can just get the government that we vote for. And if the people are not conscious, then we're going to continue to suffer the consequences in our country. So there are voices out there crying for justice, and there are others who are walking, they are sleepwalking as our democracy continue to deteriorate. So these sleepwalkers must awake, say something, do something. Um, Otherwise, the future generation going to suffer for it.
Two things, Jerry. I want to ask
Yeah.
you, and before I ask this question, just for those who haven't been in tune with what's happening with this case, with this redistricting case, we have constituencies in Belize City that has less than 2,500 people, and I will keep saying this because we have to get it. We have constituencies in Belize City that has less than 2,500 people. You come to Dangriga, you have over 6,000 people. That's more than twice the size of some of these constituencies in Belize City. Not only that, you go to Stann Creek West, Rodwell Ferguson, that has over 10,000,
Close to
5,
11,000.
600, 11. It's now at
Yeah, it's
11,000.
going. It's close to 11. It's at 10,800 the last time I checked, and that was
Wow.
for August or so.
Compare 11,000 or close to 11,000 voters registered in Stann Creek West. Compare that to, let's give them 2,500. My understanding is that the CM, let's say hypothetically speaking, that what they are getting, if they get 20,000 for a month, it's the same 20,000 Stann Creek West will get. Yes?
Well, I'm
Hypothetically
asking.
speaking.
Yeah, okay. Let's do, because I'm asking for the figures through the Freedom of Information Act, and I should be getting that around mid-January.
Good.
I
Good.
want to
So
know how much the government is giving each area representative, what they're doing with it. I want some level of accountability and transparency. So I have detailed a letter to the Prime Minister asking for those figures, and we'll see what happens.
very good. So what is your, let's close off on this topic by me asking
Yeah,
you this. What is your projection as to this case, how it will turn out?
what we want is fair, balanced electoral division in accordance with the Constitution of Belize. That's a simple solution. But also, there are other accountability measures that we will continue to look at: campaign financing, registration of political parties, because these guys are not registered, and so they have no
Yeah,
accountability of their own system. Both
they're
political
immune.
parties are complicit to this. And I always ask the question, why is Rodwell Ferguson accepting this kind of arrangement where he's representing uh, close to 11,000 electors, while in Belize City, most of them have like 3,000 or less? Why does he or the area representative for Belmopan and all of those others, what are they saying in cabinet? Why do they continuously accept this arrangement that is unconstitutional? So I also hold it on them to be complicit, weak leaders. And but of course, people elect them, and they're
Yeah.
saying nothing, and they're accepting that. So it's a huge flaw in the system when you have dysfunctional leaders.
We have to keep our leaders accountable. Friends, family, brothers, and sisters. Listen, I understand you're fond of your party. You are a PUP. But please, the time must come when we will choose people over party. We've been doing this for too long. Fine, stick with your PUP, stick with your UDP, but let your conscience be your guide. The more we keep protecting these people when they abuse us, we maintain this system. And this system has kept us downtrodden. This is Dangriga Unmuted. We unmute the truth with demand change. Tonight, we're going to talk about Commerce Bight, Jerry. Let's give me a brief history. You wrote an article. It was published on the Amandala. I was actually reviewing this article, the comparative table, right? Saying why Dangriga, why Commerce Bight is the most suitable location for a deep water port, and why for many years, for decades, Commerce Bight here in Dangriga has been dormant. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And let me preface my answer with this observation. We are running a country in which a few, if I may use the term, people who feel that they're entitled make decisions for the rest of the country, and they drive their own preference and their own personal or political party interest over the national interest. And therefore, they do not see the country as a country, but more as an extension of Belize City. And so, from a colonial standpoint rests in Belize City. And there are those who staunchly want to maintain that way of thinking. We run things, and we, no matter who else, we are the bosses, we are the lords, and we will make decisions for the rest of the country, even making decisions as to who will represent you. We will place people who we like to represent you, and then you in turn just rubber stamp it and say, well, you will be my. So there's a disconnect in many ways that has undermined people persistently, especially those in the South. People of the South used to be the breadbasket of the country, and it is no coincidence through policies and all of that that it no longer serves that purpose. The South used to produce rice, bananas in a way that the people are involved in the production. Okay, so Commerce Bight Port came out of the productivity of the South. And there is another thing about Commerce Bight. There was a study, according to an article written by Henry Young some years ago. There's a study that said that um, above the Sibun River, there's no natural area for a viable port. The best area for a port nationally is Commerce Bight. It is um, a natural port, and I will give you some just some comparisons quickly. Um,
I have that
when Commerce,
comparative table. Should I put it up?
no, let me do this one first, and then I will, because this I'll give
Sure.
a little more detail. Commerce Bight Port, unlike the port in Belize City, there was recommendation that it is not viable to have a port in Belize City, but the Belize City-based leaders decided that they will have a port in Belize City. So it is not looking at the national interest, but more the local Belize City interest. But here's when a Commerce Bight Port, as opposed to the port in Belize City, there's no dredging required. It is a natural deep water, um, which right now it has an access of 24 to 27 feet depth. And if you just go about half mile out, you get a depth of 45 feet. So right from the get-go, you'll save tens of millions of in maintenance costs. If you look at the one in Belize City, it requires massive dredging. Commerce Bight, no dredging. In Belize City, massive dredging. And the past dredging cost up to about 2014 was about $42 million just to keep the depth. And it is not even
Let me
that
inject.
depth.
So how long in
Mhm.
a span of what? 2 years, 5 years, that $42 million
About a 10-year period,
10-year period. Okay,
10 to
that's
15 year
still a lot.
period, $42 million just plus 30, and then you have to have, there's a $30 million, we call it a trestle, but the wharf, just to reach that minimal depth of about 25 feet. So you have to go way out for just for a minimal depth and still cannot get the kind of ships that could go into Commerce Bight. So it will need an ultra long trestle to reach like 5 miles out for a cruise ship to be able to get to that pier. Imagine to have a 5 mile pier to get cruise ships in, or you have to dredge a lot of the seafloor, which will of course have impacts down to Dangriga and other areas, coastal areas, and disturb the whole environmental cost just to dredge,
Hmm.
tens of millions to dredge, whereas in Commerce Bight, there's a natural port that requires no dredging.
No
And
dredging
all
at
you need
all.
is a half mile more, you could bring in those huge cruise ships. So let me set that first for people to really think about that, because I'll go back to why that was not done. And of course, we're going to talk about the historical discrimination, racism, and all of those, the colonial kind of mentality that continues to plague us. But so it ought to have been like just a national port. So as I said, um, with half-mile out, you could bring in the cruise ships to dock. In the Lee City, they still dock 5 miles out and you have to ferry people in. There's a potential for economic zone development if you had Commerce Bight. So that could have been a hub to service the Petén area, southern Mexico area. It could have been a super port um, to service these areas, and so there could have been a boost of the economy in Dangriga and southern Belize. So you'd have regional trade integration. By the way, Commerce Bight was the port in the early 1900s. It was from there you had shipments of bananas, coconuts. The record is there. You even had citrus. So that port serviced the country for export, a natural port in the early 1900s. And then you have so the environmental impact I mentioned would not have been severe, all the dredging that is required with considering, of course, climate change and all of that. Um, uh, even the Belize City port is highly vulnerable to storm surges, to sea level rise, because it's a low line. It's not only a low lying area, it doesn't have the depth, so you have to keep dredging. Whereas um, the geography of Commerce Bight itself is safer from storm surges and the deep water. Um, there's no need for constant dredging as the one in Belize City. Um, so, as I mentioned, it was a historical hub for shipment for the country. In, in Belize City, it wasn't. But as I also mentioned, the Belize city-based thinking want to have everything there, regardless of all the environmental consequences of dredging. So dollar for dollar, Commerce Bight is economically superior. Now, here's something else that is important to mention. While we have these resources that could benefit the people, the thinking of these oligarchs seem to always exclude the local people. I could cite an example on PG, for example. There was Voice of America owned about 200 or a little more than 200 acres of pristine property south of Punta Gorda. When Voice of America closed, that that prime property ought to have gone back to the people of Punta Gorda for expansion of Punta Gorda, for economic activities that could have benefited the people of Punta Gorda. 200 plus acres of prime property that was leased by the Voice of America during the Central American Wars for their operations. The land cleared, that could have gone back to the people of Belize. It could have hosted a new airstrip, for example. It could have hosted the University of Belize. Those were some of the thinking in those days, apart from other economic activities that were exploring. One politician decided to take that land for himself and his family,
Hmm.
quietly, without knowledge of the people of Punta Gorda. And so that land is in private hands. And with
Wow.
the blessing of the government. So instead of it passed down to PG, it is passed on to a politician and then his family benefits. I'm saying
I,
that
I
because you
wanna
can
I
see
wanna
that as a
inject.
pattern even in Commerce Bight. There's a pattern that is showing up where the local
Hmm.
people are alienated from their resources, and those resources are placed in the hands not of competitive bidding by other interests to have the best use of it, but it goes to political party family hands and it is circulated, and the people of the area are totally excluded. It is a pattern that we're seeing over and over. And not only that they're excluded, but it
To
is done in
Jerry, to
silence and
add to
secret.
that,
Yes.
I have to get more information on this, but I'm understanding that even at Commerce Bight, the total acreage of land was about, and telling people, don't quote me on this, I will get the
Yeah.
facts, was about 100 acres, and now it's down to seven, or somewhere around less than 18 acres of land. Continue. I just wanted to add that.
Uh, but all to show that these things are quietly, without accountability and transparency. It quietly avoids the local people of the area. I've seen it over and over, and I think fortunately for the Mayas, they were already distributing lands. If it wasn't that the Mayas stood up to fight for their um, communal land rights, their lands would have been gone also, and they would have been kept out, because that is a pattern of the mindset of our leaders, um, dishing out all our resources to those who could, and very silently and clandestinely, to those others who are benefiting, who are not from the community. You're going to see all along coastal Belize that is predominantly owned by foreign-born owners, and it is increasing very. There's silent deals being made while our people are continuing to be kept out. And that is why the system continues to deteriorate in silence. There are these secretive contracts that people are not a part of it, by our own leaders doing it. So by the time we open our eyes in this kind of a sleepwalking culture, we will see that so much is already gone.
What is now with the latest development in the news? With this businessman, this Mexican businessman who appears to be affiliated with so many criminal activities, being an investor in the sport. Yes, granted, the developer has denied or has said that he is not a part of, or he's no longer, or not investing in this. Let's just say that that is the case. What do you see happening here in Dangriga if that is the case?
Well, the fact is, what has happened is that the same pattern that I mentioned, that though that land of the port was quietly privatized. It is no longer public property. It was privatized without the knowledge of the people. So there is a way in which these things are quietly done, and over years, people just realize, oh, that land is already gone and privatized. I showed you the example of the Voice of America property in southern Punta Gorda, immediate southern Punta Gorda, that ought to have been transferred, that was public property, that ought to have been transferred back to the people of Punta Gorda, or as public property. And it could there could be plans for multiple purposes for that. But there are these quiet transfers to private hands, and once that happens, then the people are locked out. So if there's no reacquisition, if there's no deliberate strategic plan as to how to best use these resources, then it is gone. And more of those kinds of arrangements are being made as we speak. But it's just that we do not find out about it because, as I said, the parties tell you you, who they want to represent you, then they use you and pay you to vote for that person. And a lot of times it's not for people from your own communities who have the community interests at heart, and then we glorify these persons, and then um, that's how it works.
What's the best case scenario for Dangriga concerning Commerce Bight Port?
The best fit is if there is a way to attract the best possible multilateral kind of financing investor, um, to have it really serve its a purpose that is going to be a boom for the people of Dangriga. Beyond $50 million of investment is nothing for such a capacity of that prime port. I would ditch Belize City and keep it as a small port and have Dangriga be that hub to service the rest of the country and neighboring countries. If those guys are thinking in a national development level, then they could maximize the use of that natural deep water port, um, for the benefit of southern Belize and the rest of the country.
With all the corruption we are seeing in the news, what's the likelihood of that happening for Dangriga?
I am very worried about our country, very concerned. And I'm glad that there are people who are here who are staying to fight, in a sense, to try to bring the country back. It is a deep sacrifice to make. Everybody could just say, let's pack up and go to the US. And those who have done that most likely will not return, especially their offspring. They're there, they're contributing talents, and I have nothing against that, but just for them just to grow into that reality, they're contributing decades of their talents, their qualifications, their energies to developing another country, and people of another country. And we who are here, um, our task is to continue to awaken people to see these things happening, and hopefully they will have their energies directed to maintain, to uplifting a system that is crumbling, quite rapidly. Crumbling, we see leaders lying right before our eyes, and uh, and they lie just as if it is okay. But we know that it's not fools listening, and but it is sad to see that people who ought to stand on integrity and swear on oath that they will serve, to the best of their ability, are just lying and conniving and finding ways to hoodwink the Belizean people, and it is very painful and sad to watch that happening. Leaders are respected when they come out and speak the truth, and let the chips
Hmm.
fall as they may, but with truth, with integrity, with care, with compassion, and have a genuine interest, not selfish interest, but of the national interest for the good of the nation. And so what we have now is we're creating a new breed of tyrants and despots. Tyrants here linger and the despots are free. Even though we're
Hmm.
saying no tyrants here linger, the
Yeah.
despots must flee. We're creating that system, but people are afraid to speak out because they're afraid of repercussions or deals that they make. Um, and then, even in the school system continues to breed the same colonial kinds of outcomes where you go to school, you're supposed to sit and listen and shut up. Then you graduate, you're graded, you become the good person if sit and shut up and listen at your
Yeah.
job and take all the abuse, but you must be yes sir, master. And then you go through all your life, and when you
That's
retire, you just
another.
sit down and watch TV,
It
and
is
nothing else to
sad.
contribute.
It is sad, Jerry. That's another thing we want to talk about. Listen, before I give you the opportunity to express your final words, there's an article a brief article I want to read by Raymond Rivers Jr. It reminds me, actually, you reminded me of this article. It says here, stop expecting 5 men to save 400,000 Belizeans. A reality check for the nation. People love to talk about revolution, but they forgot something important. A real revolution, a real change, is not carried by 5 to 6 brave people. It takes 30,000 plus Belizeans who are done being used, who are done being bribed, who are done being divided by the PUDP politics. The truth is simple. You cannot free a people who still defend their chains. For years, Belizeans said they wanted change. But the same die-hard PUDP voters kept the system alive. The same campaigners, the same color war loyalists, the same people who would sell their votes for a $50 or a grocery bag. That's why the real revolution is not about guns. It's not about battles or war. The real revolution is mental. It's about breaking the political spell. It's about waking up a population that has been trained to protect the same corruption that keeps them struggling. You don't overthrow a system by fighting it. You overthrow it when the people stop obeying it. That is why 5 men cannot save Belize. 10 men cannot save Belize. Not even 100 men. It takes a nation waking up, not warriors going down. Belize doesn't need violence. Belize needs consciousness. Belize needs unity. Belize needs 30,000 plus people standing up at the same time saying, we will not be used anymore. That is the revolution. Not bullets, not battles. Belizeans wake up to their own power. That's by Raymond Rivers Jr., Jerry.
That's an excellent piece. Definitely, the revolution begins with the mind, and we're not there yet. As I mentioned over and over, we need to find ways for people to become awakened, rather than we're living in a kind of a delusion. The things that we've been programmed to think and programmed to do continues even long after colonialism. Look at, for example, we're entering what we call the Christmas season, where in itself is a delusion. How does a white Santa Claus replace the very notion of what we're supposed to be celebrating? And then how does a snowman in a tropical country relate to what Christmas is supposed to be? How does materialism and Christmas parades and all of that relate to the essence of who Christmas is supposed to celebrate? Isn't it supposed to be the same Jesus who was against all of these excessive greed, materialism, and all of that? And we need to liberate ourselves from those kinds of thinking. Even the Christmas tree, they brought in the only green tree in the cold winter's night, which happens to be the pine tree in the European countries. We have lots of green trees, but we continue to mimic this delusion, and the schools continue to reinforce it. I'm just showing that as one example, how we
Yeah,
continue over, and not to mention Halloween, or even how people think about Easter and all of these things. But as I've written about before, since about 2014, there's an article in the Mandala, in which I wrote about questioning the notion of Christmas and the way people are going through this excess that has absolutely nothing to do with liberating the mind and freeing. It is a business driven holiday, and people continue to be hoodwinked. And so we have a lot of work to free ourselves from these delusions and mental enslavement to get to the root. But we cannot do that if we do not individually take time to observe our minds and to free our minds from these mind altering substances, not just the substances, but the mind altering programming, to follow these kinds of repetitive, meaningless kinds of things. Alcohol will be flowing in the name of what Christmas is supposed to be. People will be borrowing money to buy in the name of what Christmas is supposed to be. And of course, the churches are silent about it. The business people are happy about it. And it becomes a natural part of things with nobody questioning what are these things. So, how to say then, we have to free ourselves and get to the essence of who we are, and to find out every transformation has to begin with each of us. But if we are not aware of ourselves, if we do not develop strong, not intellectual capacities, because some people have all the intellectual accomplishment, but they're still sleepwalking through life. So it
that is
takes
true.
another level of deepening awareness, getting conscious to be able to liberate ourselves in this country where I would say leaders are thriving from exploitation of people's ignorance and innocence. And they continue to do that and legitimize their power by drawing innocent people in a, in a, in a fraudulent way, fraudulent elections, unconstitutional elections. And while after they win, they dish out the rewards to others, um, who are not the local people usually. So I've used examples to see how our resources are not empowering our people to own and to produce, but drawing others to own what we are drawn to vote for, and we're not even held, we are not holding our leaders accountable. So I just wanted to throw that out for food for thought.
Yeah, no,
But we
you're
have some
absolutely right.
serious work to do, to raise awareness. And the school, unfortunately, not doing it, because teachers themselves, they need to read more, they need to ground themselves with the reality of how our history is affecting us. And if we're not looking at that, we will repeat it, and we will suffer for it, and we will leave future generations paying the bill and suffering more. So the schools need to do it. Our religions are also in many cases very shallow and delusional and repetitive kinds of interactions with people with nothing meaningful or deep or transformational. And we're just coming out of 16 days of activism and all the violence, but we cannot see violence merely as domestic violence. Violence has to be addressed
You
in the
know,
whole root cause of what is producing this, the anger, the years of abuse, are hurting people. And if we do not find a way to create a loving society, then years down the road, we will still have the focus on violence rather than the solution and the deep rooted cause within the mind to start to heal people from even from childhood who are born into trauma, and we are not addressing those issues. Rather, we're looking at how to build bigger roads so that investors go and buy land in the Pine Ridge area or in other areas. They will open up an area and others will come and enjoy those areas, and we pay the taxes to pay for these loans. So there was a lot to think about, and as I say, we need to debunk those kinds of perceptions and illusions that we were programmed to think, and we need to create a new awareness of and commitment to build a better society. As I said, people could just run away and live in another play area and live and contribute their energies to that country, but we need all hands on deck here in Belize.
Absolutely. Jerry, before your final words, two things. I want to go to the comments. Frederick Garcia Jr. The Port of Dangriga deal needs to be restructured in which the people of Dangriga maintain 45% of the port and 55% goes to the investor. After after all, they have been given free range to dead raise on the back. You probably have a typo here, to dead raise on the back of the people once more. Management of the port must be run by our people as well as the other lower level jobs. I agree 50 million is not much, so our people should help finance and benefit properly from this development. I believe the deal right now is 2080. The public, the people of Dangriga gets 20% and the developer gets 80%. I will verify that, but I'm almost certain. Our problem will be the gatekeepers who are the least among us with much say, whose job is to ensure we don't become self-sufficient. You are absolutely right, Brother Frederick. Absolutely right. And I thank you for your comment. This is Dangriga Unmuted. We unmute the truth. We demand change. Jerry, this, as always, has been very fruitful. In the future, very, very near future, we want to dig deeper into what the agreement is at this point. We want to know what's happening at Commerce Bight. We want to know how much the developer will be getting, how much the people of Dangriga will be getting. We want to know how we, the people of Dangriga, could be part of the profit. What type of the pie? How can we get more people to invest, more of our people to benefit from our natural resources? I want to thank each and every one of you for signing on tonight. Listen, please, I'm asking you, don't just take this as another opportunity to sit at home and enjoy this live as just another entertaining moment. This is what we do time after time, day after day. We get on live, we watch, we're just being entertained. What are you going to do about it? You right now, watching your phone, your tablet, your smart TV, from the information that you have received, is this just going to be another day where you just go to bed and sleep and say, yeah, that just how things go? I am appealing to each and every one of you. When the time comes for election, let your conscience be your guide. My brother Jerry, I give you the last word before I
Yeah.
close off.
Well, thanks very much again for having me, and I hope that I am able to share a little bit about the importance of Commerce Bight. I know that now it is in private hands, but hopefully, however it pans out, that it will be of great benefit to the people of Dangriga and Southern Belize. But as I said, it's a natural deep water port with much more potential than dredging out Belize City. There's much more that could be done there that will have a high impact nationwide. And if leaders look at it objectively and find ways to have development plans to benefit everybody across the country, then that would be a win-win situation. So we will watch and see how it works out. So thanks very much again for having me.
Jerry Sereme, thank you so much. Those of you signed on once more, I thank you for joining. I go live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Next week, Wednesday, we have another informative segment. I will post the update on my page on UBAFUtv in the upcoming days. Thank you again, Bandi Sereme. And
Thanks
see
very
you
much.
guys next week, Wednesday. Jerry, enough thanks, my brother. We'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks, man.